The 9 films nominated for Best Picture tonight, they represent the best of what we do and prove that incredible stories told with talent, vision, and style invigorate our imaginations, broaden our minds, humble our hearts, and stir our souls. And the Oscar goes to 12 Years a Slave.
Welcome back to The Better Half. I'm Bradley J. Halverson, and here with me, she's my better half. It's Carly Corio. Hi, Carly.
Hi, Brad. How are you?
I'm okay. I feel like lately life has been testing me, but I feel like every time you and I sit down to do one of these episodes, it just brightens my day. I'm just so glad we're doing this. I don't think I've said that on the pod yet.
I couldn't agree more. People have been talking to me about the podcast and they're just like, how's it going? And every time I talk about it, I say, I just love doing it. And I think it does. It brings me joy, even though the movies aren't always joyful. The project we are doing and doing it with you brings me joy. So I would agree.
Yep, even when we have to discuss the most violent film I've seen, maybe ever, actually.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else but you, Carly.
Amen.
We're here to talk about 12 Years a Slave, directed by Steve McQueen, released in 2013. It won Best Picture at the 86th Academy Awards, which took place on March 2nd, 2014. Carly, what do you got for short synopsis for us?
Yeah, so my short synopsis is Solomon Northup's 12 Years a Slave recounts the author's life story as a free black man from the North who was kidnapped and sold into slavery in the pre-Civil War South. That's it. Short, to the point. I wouldn't say sweet, but short and to the point.
I'll just say this as a disclaimer. I mentioned it already, but yeah, I would say probably one of the most violent films I've seen in a long time. I think for the sake of the recap, when we get to those moments in the film, I think I'm just going to stick to the headlines. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, and I'm not doing that to sort of gloss over or yada yada the importance of what the movie is trying to achieve. But I think for the sake of the podcast experience, we'll keep it the main bit so that you understand sort of what's happening in the movie as we kind of progress through it. So,
yeah.
Oh, and I'll also say this movie does have like a stacked cast to it. And the lead role is Chiwetel Ejiofor. We also have Lupita Nyong'o and what I believe is her breakout role here.
Yes.
We have Michael Fassbender's here. Brad Pitt produces this movie, also has a minor role in it. Paul Giamatti shows up. Paul Dano shows up. Benedict Cumberbatch is here. So Sarah Paulson, can't forget her. Yeah, a stacked cast and everybody is on their A game. Getting into the movie, we are introduced to our main character, Solomon Northup. He lives in Saratoga, New York. This is, of course, the mid 1800s. Solomon, born a free man, lives in the North and has a wife and 2 kids. And when we first meet him, he's in a full sort of like suit and tie, walking around, enjoying his life. And almost immediately there's like 2 white guys nearby that's like, hey Solomon, hey. And they're like, okay, who are these clowns? And
they're in like a public park. He's just walking around.
Yep.
Also, really quick, did you, I don't feel like you did because we watched this movie together. One of the 2 men that came into contact with him was Taran Killam.
Okay, I saw this after the fact, but I did not clock it.
Yes, I was reading about the movie and they were like, oh, Taran Killam's in this and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, he's not. But yeah, and then I looked up a screenshot and it was him. Yeah,
we do start with these 2 guys and I think they head over to like a gazebo and basically these 2 guys, Taran Killam being one of them, is pitching to Solomon like, hey, we have a job opportunity for you. There is this like kind of like a traveling circus or whatever, and they need a musician. So we learn that Solomon is a gifted musician, plays the violin, and so they're like, hey, you only have to go as far as Washington, D.C., and we're going to pay you this amount of money for every performance. And what do you say? We cut to like Solomon's face, and then we immediately cut to him in Washington, D.C. Like we never actually kind of see him in this decision-making process. We cut immediately to he's already made the decision. And so I thought that was interesting because, given what's going to occur in this movie, it's like, did he take any time at all to sort of consider what they were proposing? Did he sort of blindly trust this? I assume he talked to his wife and family about it. It sounded like a good economic opportunity. But yeah, we cut straight to Washington, D.C., and the 3 of them are having a dinner in this very nice, fancy restaurant.
Seems to be a nice dinner. They seem to be having a nice time.
Yeah, so far for the first 5 minutes of the movie, you feel you feel okay. But at this dinner, it's already kind of sketchy boots here because the two white guys are highly encouraging, let's drink, drink the wine, drink up. And you do see a moment of hesitation on Solomon's face. He's like, he takes a sip and they're like, more, fill up his glass. He has a second of thought, but then he just sort of smiles and down it goes. And we literally cut from there, and suddenly the two white guys are like having to drag Solomon. They each are carrying him up the stairs basically, and he's completely out of it in a way that really is an indicator that like he's not just normal drunk here, that they possibly drugged him. They kind of toss him into his bed in whatever hotel they're staying. And these two guys have a moment looking at each other. They're like, we're doing the right thing, right? Like, this is okay. We're good people, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, it's going to be fine for us. And they leave. And suddenly we see Solomon wake up. And, well, first we hear the rattle of chains first. And he wakes up and you realize he's not in his bed anymore in a hotel, but he has been changed out of his clothes. He is now chained up and he's just laying on a stone ground in a dark room. And it's like, I don't know, the level of fear he must have experienced in that moment to wake up in such a manner. And this new white guy shows up. And this guy kind of walks in. He's clearly in charge, and Solomon's like, hey, you've made a big mistake. He's like, I'm a free guy. I'm from New York. I'm not sure what's going on, but...
He says, I'm free multiple times. Like, yeah. I'm free.
Yep. And this guy is like, no, you're not. You are a runaway from Georgia. And Solomon's like, no, I'm telling you, like, I'm free. Like, I'm from New York. And they say, no, you are a runaway from Georgia. And they quite literally beat that identity upon him in a quite brutal scene. And we quickly learn that Solomon's not the only one here. There's two other grown men, and there's also a woman and her two small kids, a boy and a girl, are also all here kind of being corralled up. They all have like their own kind of story of how they ended up here. And it's pretty bleak. And it's immediately sort of, for me watching this, I'm like, pit in my stomach. Obviously, the movie's about. It's not like he like was born into slavery and this was sort of perhaps his escape or anything. The fact that he starts as a free man and he was literally just like conned into slavery, like that was tough.
Yeah. Just the way they brutally strip his identity away from him from the very start, Yeah. I think even at one time they're like, now, are you free? And then I think he says yes. And then they beat him again. So it's very brutal. But you see how they are convincing him to go along with this and just beating his own self out of himself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's scary just how quick and efficient they are at this process. It's clear this isn't their first rodeo. Like they know what they're doing and they do it with such violent precision. Terrifying stuff. This small little group here, they get boarded onto a boat and it's headed towards New Orleans, Louisiana. So this boat ride, as you can imagine, not a fun time for anybody. And when the boat arrives, and while Paul Giamatti, I think, mostly plays nice, kind roles, we don't like him here. He's a bit of an asshole. And he's kind of going down the line, calling out people's names. And he gets to a name, Platt, and nobody responds to that. And he looks to Solomon and he's like, Platt, hello, I called for you. And so to go along with this, quote unquote, new identity that they are literally forcing upon him, they are stripping away his name.
Well, and on the boat, on the way over, he was talking to someone who you can tell has kind of been through this before, and this isn't their first rodeo, or they have some experience. And I wrote down like a quote that I think is good. And it leads into this Paul Giamatti scene, but this guy is telling Solomon, if you want to survive, do and say as little as possible. Tell no one who you really are, and tell no one you can read and write. Those were like his words. Yeah. And you can tell Solomon thinks about it, considers it, and he says, I don't want to survive, I want to live. And so I think he still has a little bit of fight left in him, and he's kind of like, I'm a free man, even though they've really brutally tried to beat that out of him. You can see it, the fire still exists a little bit in his declaration, I don't want to survive, I want to live. And then you get to this scene where, again, they're totally taking away his identity. They've completely given him a different name, and they're insisting that he is this Platt now. So it's just the stripping away of his humanity. Yeah, that's definitely a good point and a good moment in sort of Solomon's journey here, because the difference between him and the other slaves is that
he was born free. Like, he is educated. He can read, he can write. And these are like a threat. You know, they don't allow slaves to read or to write or to learn such things. So I think the advice he was given is smart, because if Solomon reveals that he is able to do these things, it will only put him in more danger. And I think for Solomon, he has to learn sort of how to navigate this new world. And he very sadly has to sacrifice the sort of like, I want to live, and transition to like, how do I survive?
Yeah.
So Paul Giamatti gives him the name Platt. And at this point, it really is just Solomon and the woman we mentioned. Her name is Eliza, and her 2 kids. They're all kind of brought to this building. And this is where we see Benedict Cumberbatch for the first time. He plays William Ford. And he is there to purchase some human beings. And this is what Paul Giamatti's job is. And unfortunately, he is kind of in charge of who gets sold to who, where he can make the most profits. Benedict Cumberbatch, he's interested in having both Solomon and Eliza, and she's pleading and begging for both of her kids to come with her. And Ford seems open to it, but Paul Giamatti is like, you know, these kids are going to be really profitable. Like, I have another plan for them. So you can have Platt and you can have Eliza, and that's all I'm offering to you. And it's really heartbreaking. Eliza is like, she is just talking over them in the background, just saying like, please, no, like begging, like, don't do this. Please don't take my kids away. And they do anyways. And so
Paul Giamatti's like a greasy salesman, you know, and it is. And you had said selling humans even more awful, but just the way that he's walking around this room where there's literally just human beings lined up, and, you know, he's selling them and pitching them. And then, you see again, just the lack of humanity in someone like this, that he doesn't even care. You can see Benedict Cumberbatch actually kind of is like not wanting to, but, you know, he has power and he doesn't stand up against it. Paul Giamatti just does what he wants, and the emotion you see from Eliza from now and then through a lot of the movie, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I do think this is a good introduction of Benedict's character, because like, he's really the first white character we see on screen where maybe we have just a twinge of hope that like, you're not as cruel as the rest of them. And especially in the way that he is like trying to keep this mother with her 2 children, but you also see him basically give up pretty quickly. He pushes back a little bit, but he's not going to die on this hill. And it's sort of like a classic sort of like, I'm well-intentioned, but, you know, there's nothing I can do. And upsettingly so, we never see those kids again. I mean, this is a biographical film, so we really are going to just stick with Solomon. So characters kind of come in and out of his experience during this time. And so we don't see these kids for the rest of the movie. We don't really know what is their fate and what ends up happening to them. And so Solomon and Eliza get taken to Ford's plantation, and it seems like a big operation. There's already a ton of other slave workers. We get introduced to Paul Dano's character, who is John Tibbets, and he says his title is Chief Carpenter. He's someone clearly like who has a little bit of power, and he loves that. Not a good vibe off of him.
He also, though, seems like he's grown up around this cruelty, and it's been part of his upbringing. It's a normal part of life for him to have power and others to not have power. You know, he's learned it somewhere, and you can tell. Yeah,
like the vibe it gives off is like, I'm a recent high school graduate, and now I get to finally be as cruel as I've seen other people be. You know, I get to be an active participant in this structure that I totally believe in. And I feel like that's the kind of scary vibe that he gives off.
Yeah.
And so Solomon and the others, they're quickly kind of put to work here. And again, we do see that Benedict Cumberbatch, William Ford, I would say as kind as one can get here, he does give Solomon a violin. And I think this is where we start to see Solomon start to play the game, so to speak. He's like approaching Ford, offering suggestions of ways that the work can be improved, how they can work around this river, offering up ideas that I think Paul Dano like believes should be his ideas, or he kind of sees as like an affront to power and authority. But Solomon, I think, is very much playing the sort of like favor game, trying to cozy up to William Ford, possibly like building a relationship that's positive enough that maybe one day he could share, hey, I'm actually a free man. Can you help me get a letter out? Like, I think he's working up to this point, but Paul Dano is really there as like a major obstacle in his way of achieving this. Meanwhile, Eliza is not doing well. Every scene that she is in, she is openly weeping and sobbing. There's a powerful scene where her and Solomon are sort of like outside of where they sleep, and she is just sitting on the porch, just crying, and Solomon just has enough. He just very harshly is like, enough. You're not the only one missing your kids. Like, you have to stop this noise. Like, you have to hush up. And she claps back. She was like, you think that you can cozy up to Ford. I see you trying to play the favors game. You think that you're going to be able to get in his good graces, that you're going to be able to receive favors in return. And he is like, I literally wrote, like, I survive. Like, he has flipped this switch of like, he's doing what he can to survive, because Eliza's not the only one separated from her kids. Like, he has been as well. Like, he's got a family to get back to. And this is the route he's going. And I think he is unfortunately being a little judgmental of how she's approaching the situation versus like him. But
well, and as you said, he's starting to play the game. It's interesting, this conversation that he has compared to the conversation he had on the boat with that other gentleman, where he's like, I don't want to survive, I want to live. And I think now you kind of see Eliza being like, we're not living here, blah, blah, blah. Like, this isn't living. And he's very much like, we're surviving. So I wrote, Solomon has opposite conversation about living and surviving. So that's definitely what it felt like.
She kind of ends it. She kind of shuts him up by saying, like, let me weep. She resumes crying. And I think you bring up a good point too, of like, it kind of can seem like it's a sudden transition within Solomon. And obviously, as the title suggests, like, this is a 12-year period that we're covering. The film really doesn't hold your hand in terms of the passage of time. We don't know, by the time he's having this scene with Eliza, we don't know if weeks, months, even a year has like gone by since. And so I think the movie, I think at times too, I was like, I wish I had a better understanding of like the passage of time a little bit, to just really understand that like he's already been here for a year or for a certain period of time. Be able to track really Solomon's, I don't want to say transformation, but just sort of like where he begins on this awful journey and where he'll end up. And unfortunately, we don't get too much more of Eliza, because really the next time we see her, two guys are just dragging her off, and while she's openly sobbing still and crying out, and we never see her again for the rest of the movie. So like I said, characters keep kind of floating in and out, and we don't get to, it's not their story, so we don't follow them to whatever happened to them next. We then cut to this pretty important scene. Again, things are really tense between Solomon and Paul Dano's character, John Tibbets, and things really come to a head one day when Solomon is like working on some sort of building, a shed, a barn of some sort. He's working on doing some like wooden siding, basically some wooden panels. And Paul Dano just comes over and is just being a general dickhead. And he like kicks off one of the boards and starts berating him more and more. And Solomon starts clapping back. And again, we're still in this, I think, in this beginning foundational phase of Solomon's journey of like that fight is still in him. In this moment, he's not hearing the advice he got from that guy on the boat about sort of like, keep it together, play the game a little bit. Solomon loses his cool here, and it causes Paul's character to bring out the whip, and he aims to sort of hit Solomon with it, but Solomon gets the best of him. They start sort of like wrestling on the ground, fighting over this whip, and Solomon gets the upper hand, grabs the whip, and like
starts beating him with it.
It's not great. I mean, like, at this moment, I'm like, yay, Solomon, go girl. Yes, queen.
It's
Get
great
his ass.
to see. It's not great. Yes.
Yeah. We're worried about the immediate aftermath, because Paul Dano's response is pretty upsetting, but he gets a couple of other guys, and right there on the plantation, they plan to hang Solomon. And they go as far as to get the rope around his neck. They lift him off the ground. He's sort of like on top of wet mud, but his feet do come up off the ground. And then for a moment, and then the overseer of the plantation shows up and basically comes in and shuts this down immediately. He was like, this isn't your property. This is William Ford's decision to sort of dole out this punishment. You're not allowed to do this. And sort of like pushes Paul Dano out of the movie. And then you would think like, hey, the overseer, saves the day. He's going to let Solomon free. And no, continues to let Solomon hang there with like, it's like just his tippy toes are touching the ground, or touching this mud really. And he's constantly sort of having to move his feet to sort of keep himself from slipping completely.
When you hear his like, like he's just barely getting air. They do close-ups of his feet where he's, on his tippy toes in mud. So he's sinking even more. I don't know, Brad, and until later in the movie, this was such a disturbing scene. But I would say, I wrote down, it's about a 4 minute straight of just seeing him stand there. 4 minutes might be long, but it felt like easily 4 minutes watching it. And it's just a shot of the plantation, really, and like a wide shot of this huge tree and him just under it, hardly, staying alive. And then all you hear, like if you're outside in the summer, there was all the noises of the bugs and
natural
stuff.
noises.
Yep. And you see just people, they were like kids playing, they just like life resumes as normal in quotes. It's not normal, but it was just such a harrowing scene. It was horrible to see. And I mean, you could tell he's been there. It starts to get dark by the time that someone comes along, but it is. And just sitting there watching it is uncomfortable. And you just realize that I was sitting on a comfortable couch in my comfortable home. So it's horrible to watch.
It really was, I think, one of the more powerful moments of the film. There was no musical score. This was composed by Hans Zimmer. Shout out Hans. Love him. There was no musical score. This was, just like you said, silent, just natural noises. We just stick with Solomon at first, and then like these background people start floating in onto screen, and they're just going about their day, doing their work. Nobody's coming over to help him or acknowledging. You get the sense that this is just a part of everyday life there, which is horrifying. And you're right. It's like basically around sunset where we see like a breathless Benedict Cumberbatch just running towards him. He's like, oh my God, no way, no. And he finally is the one to get him down and brings him inside his home. Ford is telling him like, hey, like Paul Dano is gonna kill you. You're not safe anymore. I have to sell you to someone else. And nobody wanted you except for this sadist, Edwin Epps. He's cruel, but you'll be alive there. So again, it's just another instance of like, you could be doing a lot more. Again, he's not doing anything to really be a rebel here or fight against the structures or the systems. And instead, he literally tells Solomon, like, this is for your safety. I'm going to sell you to this other guy. And goes as far as to warn him that this new guy, Edwin Epps, is a cruel guy. Like, but he's the only one who's going to take you. So it's just this sort of like, you're doing this for safety, but you're about to put him in an even worse environment.
Well, and Solomon tell him, like, I'm a free man. Like, you don't get it. I'm a free man. Benedict Cumberbatch is like, sorry, like, I have to pay this debt in some way.
Yeah, that's right.
How it is.
Yeah.
And so it was, and it, again, this guy's almost a good guy, he does a good thing, but he also
so close.
is so close. He just not close enough. He still is someone who values money and all the wrong things over humanity. Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange, at one point I did the two fingers and swirl it around so that he can make this portal and jump out of here, because Brad and I were like, this is not it. Get us to another dimension, please. But this really is the end of Benedict Cumberbatch's character in the movie. So.
Yep. And again, we don't really know the passage of time here, but we are transitioning now to Solomon's second plantation, where we meet Edwin Epps. This is played by Michael Fassbender. I think I said to you, Carly, it's a good callback to our famous question, who are these actors that can just play these like villainous characters like in a modern day? And I would say Michael Fassbender is like up there. I don't know too many like good guy roles that Michael Fassbender has played.
Yeah, and you immediately clocked that.
And it's certainly not this movie.
No, oh my gosh. And I can't say I identify any other Michael Fassbender roles like right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So this will forever be what I identify him as. And yeah, not a good guy.
Yeah. The only thing that comes to mind is the X-Men prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Where he does play Magneto, who's, an iconic villain.
So a villain again.
And so, yeah, although Magneto, I'd rather get dinner with him than Edwin Epps. I'll just say that. Edwin Epps here, he's married to a woman named Mary, who is played by Sarah Paulson.
So
I believe I said, I'm like, of course she's here, because this is a true American Horror Story.
Well, right. It opens up, you see Edwin Epps right front and center, and then you see a blurred vision of his wife behind him, and you clocked right away. You're like, oh my gosh, is that Sarah Paulson? But yeah, you originally had clocked her right away, and you had said, you were
clocked
like,
her ass.
Yeah, you were like, oh, and I think you even said, is that the person in all the Ryan Murphy things? And then we quickly were like, yeah, Sarah Paulson. And you were like, oh my God, this is like the original American Horror Story.
And in most American Horror Story seasons, you typically root for Sarah Paulson's character, but not in this one. We do not like Mary Epps here.
Dislike.
No. And at this plantation, we get introduced to Patsy. This is Lupita Nyong'o's character. And we first see her. They're all kind of like, all the workers are kind of lined up in like a barn or whatever. Michael Fassbender is sort of like walking down the line, but he takes a moment behind Patsy and like kind of grabs her shoulders, and he's like complimenting her on the fact that, you know, she's picking more pounds of cotton than all the men are. She's basically like a star worker here. But just the way he's sort of like rubbing her shoulders, you get a really bad vibe what the dynamic is, and that it's certainly not a good thing for Patsy to, I think, be the favorite. We really find out pretty quickly why, because that night all the workers are forced to wake up, go into the living room, and like do a dance party. And I think this is for Mary's Epps benefit. It's for her, but she's there with like the biggest stank face of all time, and she just quickly goes over, grabs this like glass bottle and throws it straight into Patsy's face.
Oof.
Bottle doesn't break at all, just like you just hear this thud. It's sickening, and the music stops, the dance party's over, and Sarah Paulson goes over to Michael Fassbender, and like what we're learning here really quickly is that she particularly hates Patsy, knows that she is Edwin's favorite. I think the insinuation here, and we later get confirmation of it, but he is assaulting her maybe every night, most nights. And this is something that Sarah Paulson is aware of and is like jealous or angry, but she is particularly vindictive towards Patsy here, and this is an example of that. And she kind of continues to be cruel to Patsy throughout the film. And Edwin like tells Mary, he was like, if I had to choose between you and Patsy, I would choose her. Like, I would choose her over you. And like just this really sick and twisted dynamic that's going on here.
Yeah.
We do get a scene where like Solomon heads over to like a neighbor plantation, and I don't know if Patsy was there covertly or if she was allowed to head over there, but Patsy's there, and she's with a woman. The actress is Alfred Woodward, who Carly and I know from the second season of Desperate Housewives. Mm-hmm. And I've also seen her in Marvel's Luke Cage show. But they're both there sitting at a table like on the porch in nicer clothing. And Solomon quickly learns from the two of them that she used to be a slave, and then basically her master married her. And so now she kind of lives this somewhat lavish lifestyle as like the mistress of the plantation. And she basically explains like she doesn't feel guilty at all because this is her way of surviving in this world. So I think the connection you could make in your mind as the viewer is like, this is possibly what Michael Fassbender could do with Patsy. He could potentially marry her, and not even divorce Mary, like just have a second wife and marry Patsy or whatever.
Mm-hmm. She's very much like, just let him do what he wants, because look at what could happen. And you see Patsy, she has like a bruised face from being hit by the decanter. And I mean, pretty much throughout every scene with Patsy, she has some injury because she's just treated like shit, obviously. But yeah, you can see her kind of listening to this character and seeing, I mean, they're having this beautiful brunch out on this front porch, and like you said, dressed very nicely. And she's just like, just let it happen, because look what it could lead to. So as a viewer, you're very much like, no. But again, with survival, you know.
Yeah, I wrote this quote that she says to Patsy in this conversation. She said, "The good Lord will manage them all," basically saying that like God's going to take care of these wicked people. Like, they're going to get their comeuppance one day. And in the meantime, you just got to do what you have to do to survive. Things continue to be pretty tense at the Epps plantation. And again, like Edwin and Mary continue to sort of fight and bicker more and more about Patsy. At one point, Sarah Paulson just scratches her face, like just continues to, things are really starting to ramp up here. And meanwhile, like Patsy and Solomon are developing somewhat of a kinship, a relationship here. Not a romantic one, but one in, you know, obviously in solidarity of this awful experience that they're going through. But, you know, one of the nights we do see Michael Fassbender's character, you know, wakes up Patsy to assault her. And I think with that in mind, you know, we later see Patsy have a conversation with Solomon where she just straight up asks him to kill her.
Please end my life.
Yeah. So I think despite what her friend at the other plantation was telling her about like, do what you have to do, I think like Patsy is, I think, reclaiming her own power to say like, I don't want to live in this world anymore. It would rather die at the hands of someone like Solomon than dying at the hands of Edwin or Mary or any of these cruel people, just to kind of end things on her terms and with Solomon's help. But Solomon, he says no, he can't do this. Yeah. It's too big of an ask. And, you know, she's dismayed to hear this.
I think he says, I'm not the one to do that. And she says, you're the only one to do that.
Chills. Lupita is so good in this movie. Like I've never seen this movie before this project, but knowing like this is Lupita's like breakout role, like never really fully connecting the dots for myself. Like, I eventually fell in love with Lupita like later with other roles. To see her here, it's just like, she is so good. She gives everything into this performance. And as a character, Patsy, it's just heartbreaking every time she's on the scene. But Lupita just like can hold all this emotion in her face at one time, and it's pretty incredible to see. So the movie progresses a little bit more. I get the sense that the passage of time has occurred here, and we get all these close-up shots of like bugs, like these like worms on the cotton. And Carly, they use that like, oh, cotton worms.
Oh,
cotton
cotton
that's
worms.
a thing. Oh, you hate to see it.
I know a cotton worm when I see it.
Well, they are destroying all the cotton. These hungry little parasites, if you will, eat all the cotton, and it's kind of affecting, obviously, the cotton is the main source of production here at the plantation. And so without any cotton to pick, the workers, the slaves are forced to go to that neighboring plantation, I think for like the summer or for like a period of time where they basically be on loan to another plantation owner. But this plantation owner, I didn't get his name, but he seems to be a bit kinder. This is generally, I think, a bit of a reprieve for Solomon and for Patsy. Solomon gets to play the violin a lot more. He is like playing music, like at all these like parties for all these white people and just being like a performer for them. But unfortunately, like, it doesn't last forever. They're forced to return back to the Epps plantation. And in my head, I'm thinking like, oh my God, like how much more? Like, no. And we're going to head towards the climax of the film, really. But I think this is where we get introduced to Brad Pitt's character, though, initially.
Yep.
So Brad Pitt shows up, and in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, Benedict Cumberbatch was like level 1 bad white guy. And then Edwin was like level 8 bad guy. And I was like, oh no, now here comes Brad Pitt. I'm like, what level is he going to be at?
You did, and because you expected, because I at one point was like, wait,
they get
where's
worse
Brad?
and worse.
Yeah, I was like, wait, where's Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
This was like halfway through the movie, and you were like, oh my God, there's another white guy coming, and you did. And
Oh my God.
You were like, oh my God, it's going to get even worse, because we had no idea what Brad Pitt's character would be.
No, and then we learn quickly, though, he's got like long, gorgeous hair, a bit of a Jesus look to him. And you just get the sense he's kinder. And I like turned to you and like chuckled a little bit because I'm like, Brad Pitt, produced this movie and then like wrote himself like as the only likable white guy in the film. But yeah, he plays a character named, his last name is Bass.
Lance Bass. It's Samuel.
So we get introduced to him. He comes off a bit more sympathetic. He has some like repartee with Michael Fassbender, kind of tells him off a little bit. So we get the sense that like Brad Pitt doesn't really put up with anyone's shit, and he's not going to be like Benedict Cumberbatch, basically. And so we get his character established, but again, we got to get to probably like the toughest part of the whole movie, unfortunately. Again, I'm going to go with headlines here, but one of these days, Patsy is missing. Edwin is like looking for her. He's like running around the plantation being like, where's Patsy? He is drunk. And we've actually seen really Edwin be drunk for most of the movie.
Yeah.
I think a little bit earlier before the cottonworms show up, like him and Solomon have this big sort of like kind of like altercation, this like chase around the plantation a little bit, where Michael Fassbender is clearly like drunk, just kind of like playing with Solomon, but like chasing him around a little bit. I think accusing him of like, you ran an errand, like where were you? You were trying to run away, weren't you? Or something like that, trying to accuse him. And Sarah Paulson kind of comes out there and breaks that up. And so yeah, we get the sense that Edwin is drunk, and he's definitely drunk this day when he's running around being like, where's Patsy? Where's Patsy? He's like yelling at the other women, like screaming in their face, like, where is she? And she shows up and she was like, hey, like, I'm here. Like, I just went over to that other plantation to get some soap. And she's fired up here. Like, she's like, I am the hardest working person here. I put out pounds of cotton a day. I work harder than any man here. And I deserve to be clean. I deserve to be clean, she says. And she holds up this like tiniest piece of soap you can imagine. And things start to devolve very quickly. Sarah Paulson comes out. She's pissed, of course, as she always is when it's Patsy. And she's like, you need to punish her. You need to whip her. And Michael Fassbender, instead of doing it himself, he turns to Solomon, hands him the whip, and he's like, you're going to do it. Strip her bare. Tie her up, and you're gonna do this. And literally it's a big scene. Like everybody, all the worker, anyone who was outside in the vicinity are just like watching in horror. And Solomon does whip Patsy here. It's really upsetting, especially because Michael Fassbender, Edwin here, he's like, nope, you need to do it harder. Literally pulls a gun on Solomon to get him to whip her even harder. And he does initially, and then Solomon gives up, he gives out. And again, I won't get too much in the nitty gritty, but Lupita, like her performance here, it's just, it's so powerful. It really is. And the level of hatred I felt, it's like, step aside that awful family from $1 Million Baby. We finally have worst character, like the worst characters we met on screen. The family $1 Million Baby is like a close second though, but
stop. No, this scene, and
this is bad.
This is the most nauseously sick I've felt watching any scene probably ever in film.
Yeah.
And he couldn't find Patsy. She had gone to like a neighboring house to get soap because Mrs. Epps wouldn't let her use soap. And she was like, I smell terrible. So as the scene happened, you know, and at the end, she's just basically down on her knees, just an awful condition. And then at the end, they pan to just the bar of soap, and you just see the bar of soap sitting there on the ground. And I thought that was an interesting way to end that scene, because it all really started in part because of the bar of soap, but mostly because of just how awful of a human being Epps is.
And Mary, like both of them.
Yeah. And Mary does stand there and she's just smiling, and so, you know, whatever.
Yeah, you're right. This was definitely the hardest scene to get through. And this movie, if it is not clear, doesn't shy away from showing us any of this.
Yeah.
And I think that is certainly intentional. We see Patsy's like back, like in the aftermath, and sort of the other women on the plantation are tending to her, and that was the most nauseous part, was seeing what her back looked like. And so then we start to enter sort of the ending to this movie, mercifully. And Solomon, he is helping Lance Bass here. What's his name? Samuel Bass. Brad Pitt. Samuel Lance Bass, helping him build like a gazebo, and it's just the two of them. And Brad Pitt is like explaining, he's like, oh, I'm not from here. I'm Canadian. He's like, I'm like from Ontario. And Solomon's like, oh, I know about Ontario. He's like, I've been to Kingston and Queenstown, and just names a bunch of places. And Brad Pitt's like, okay, but like, he's like, not to be rude, but like, aren't you a slave?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm a free man. And so we see Solomon like finally tell the truth. And Solomon doesn't blurt it out like that. He's a little bit more hesitant to reveal his big secret to Bass. But, you know, I think at this moment, especially given all that's happened to Patsy, like, he needs to do something. And Brad Pitt here is like as close to a kind white guy that you can get in the South. And, you know, it's so important to Solomon that he finds a way to get a letter to his family up to New York, you know. And we had seen earlier at the plantation him sort of in secret sort of fashioning like a writing utensil of some sort, and using sort of like mashed up berries to sort of be the ink, and trying to write on some parchment, but it wasn't super effective. And so he really does need the help of Samuel Bass here. Like, he needs Brad Pitt's help in this moment. So, and he kind of is like hesitant here. He's like, I don't know if I should tell you, because I think at this point he is recalling that advice from the man on the boat, you know, probably at this point 12 years ago, I'm imagining, you know, about like, don't share your secret to anybody, and like, this is the way to survive in this world. And I think he has seen enough now to know that that's the truth, and yet we still see him take a leap of faith and trust Brad Pitt here with the truth that he's a free man. He has a wife and 2 kids, and he's from New York, and he just so desperately needs to get a letter to them. He needs help.
He said, I can do it, but I am scared. So I think that's probably what we're left on, where he's thinking he could do it, but he hadn't said like, oh, for sure. So I think that was a good way to put it, where even as the viewer, you're like, do we trust this? Is it going to happen? You don't know.
Yeah, I think we're on the edge, primed to believe that like this will end in tragedy. And we do get also an emotional scene with Solomon with that great musical score by Hans Zimmer, but he destroys the violin. I think he's so guilty about what happened to Patsy, especially considering the fact that she asked him to help end her life and he didn't do it, and this occurred. And so he destroys the violin, and I found that to be a pretty powerful moment in the film as well. He's really broken down, and I think that helps also inform like why it's like a one last Hail Mary to try and get out of there and to just tell the truth and see what happens. And we do kind of cut to Solomon working on the plantation, and suddenly this cop shows up and he's like, I'm looking for Solomon Northup. And like, Solomon, who hasn't been called this name in 12 years, is like, that's me. And the cop's like, do you recognize this guy behind me? And we look over, and initially I was like, who's that? You know, there's like some random white guy who like came with the cop, and it clicked because we did get treated to a few flashback scenes during the movie. And in one of them, Solomon was like in a shop and had this interaction with the shopkeeper who was very kind to him. And we see that it's the shopkeeper. So it's like someone who knows Solomon, who knows the truth, who's like here to like verify this in person. And Solomon's like, I know who that is. That's like Mr. Brown or whoever it is. And I'm Solomon Northup. I know I am who I say I am. The shopkeeper confirms, like, that's him. That's Solomon.
When the cop is like, asks like, what's your wife's name? Like, asks him to confirm all these details. And he right away, he riddles off his wife, his kid, all this information. And you could just see like a fire has lit under him. And he's like, oh my gosh. And he gives it right away, very quick. And Epps kind of just pops up out of nowhere and is like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. He's like, you're going to be hearing from my lawyers. My dad invented the toaster strudel. Like, that's kind of energy he's given. He's like, I'm a white guy and you're not going to tell me no. And I'm going to sue you to high hell. And the cop and the shopkeeper, everyone's like, oh, whatever, shove it up your ass.
Right.
And I'm like, please tell me this is true. Like, please tell me, like, this is happening. It's not a dream sequence. Like, please tell me, for the love of God. Like, this is all happening.
You could tell that he's like, peace out. He like throws all of his stuff. And everyone else all the other slaves and people on the plantation are just looking. And they're kind of like just stunned by what's going on. And they also you could just tell, are like, so happy for Solomon. They're just like, hell yeah, dude. And without saying anything, of course. But then you see Solomon look back and you see Patsy, and he goes right over to Patsy again. Epps is right there watching everything, but he goes right over to Patsy and they have this 30-second embrace, where it's just like the sweetest thing. And you can see both joy for Solomon, sadness for what else is going on in both of their faces at this hug. But they say a lot without saying anything at all. And then he walks back to the police car and you see him drive away.
And your heart just breaks because you just be like, no, take Patsy with you. Like, can't they both leave? And it's like, this is only happening for him. It's not happening for her. She has to stay in this awful place. And you're happy for Solomon, but your heart breaks for Patsy, this character we've gotten to know and seen to be treated so brutally at this plantation. And because it's the Solomon story, like, that is where we leave with Patsy, and we don't know the end of her story. So but we do cut to, in the final few scenes of the movie, Solomon returns to New York in proper clothing. That beautiful musical score is kicking up again. Solomon returns home and he just walks through the front door, and there's his whole family lined up waiting for him. And his kids are now grown adults, and his daughter has married someone, and he's there and he's holding a little baby. And before they even say anything, it's just like this super powerful moment. And we really linger on Solomon's face here, his eyes welling up with tears. And the first words I think he does say is, I'm sorry. I was gone for so long. And it's just like, it's so heartbreaking.
That's all he could think of is, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, this was his fault. And his family just walk over and they embrace. I told you, Carly, this is the first film that we've covered where my eyes welled up a little bit. I experienced true emotion.
Bradley teared.
And we fade to black. So, hoo boy, that was a ride.
Brad and I, when we watched this, we had spent the day together, and we really had nothing to say for minutes after this movie ended. Like, it was
there
just
was such
silent.
a shift. Carly and I got Starbucks. Like, we got lunch. Like, there was definitely like a vibe and a mood that we had before the movie, and then after the movie, it was like we weren't the same anymore. Like, you were showing me your really cool coffee maker. Carly has it's like the T6000 model Keurig. And yet there was this cloud hanging over both of us. What did we just witness? But the coffee was good, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. But this was, we mentioned it a few times, but this was a very tough watch and nauseating and just a very violent film. And I don't want to fault the film for that level of violence at all, because I think that shock factor was needed and accurate and important to the film's significance and what it was trying to achieve. And I think a lot of ways it's kind of miraculous that this won the big award of the night. Oscars have certainly been criticized in its history about being super white and not really diversifying the filmmakers who are being nominated and the stories that are being told. And so it sucks that we have to wait till 2014 for a movie of of this sort of content and caliber to win, but I'm happy to see its inclusion in this like list of Best Picture winners. But definitely a tough movie. It's a movie that like I'm not sure I'm going to be able to revisit.
No.
It's a movie I think that everyone should probably see once. I also found it particularly powerful. You know, it's 2025 right now, and you know, we're living in a time where lawmakers are trying to change museums, and they're trying to change American history courses and classes, and really trying to pretend like these stories aren't important or that they don't matter. So I think this was a particularly timely to watch this movie. I think it's important that we don't look away, and I'm glad that the movie too doesn't, again, it shows us everything and it forces us to have to see it. I do think that is important.
We've watched 9 at this point, but as we
Mm-hmm.
look through all of the Best Picture winners, you know, they definitely tell history in general. So I think the fact that this piece of history is forever put into this group of best movies is important to the history of the world, really.
This director, Steve McQueen, first of all, is the first Black filmmaker to direct a Best Picture winner, but also he's British. And I thought that was very interesting considering that this is a film regarding American history, and it's being helmed by a British filmmaker. And there's a quote too that I found from Brad Pitt. It said Steve was the first to ask the big question, why has there not been more films on the American history of slavery? And it was a big question it took a Brit to ask. Steve McQueen also, I'm paraphrasing here, but he had a quote too of saying like World War II took place over 5 years, and there's like hundreds of films about World War II. Slavery lasted 200 years, and there's maybe only like 20 movies like this.
Yeah.
I think that is really important to bring up.
Yeah.
I think Steve McQueen did a phenomenal job, but it does beg the question of like, why aren't Americans telling more of these stories?
Yeah.
Kudos to Steve McQueen for being a pioneer, for being the first Black filmmaker to direct a Best Picture winner. Like, that is super powerful. And a lot of his films too, I've only seen one of them. I'll read off the titles, but some of his other films, one's called Hunger, another one called Shame, and the one I have seen is called Widows. It had Viola Davis, really good. Recently, a movie called Blitz. But all of his movies deal with like just really tough topics. But well, let's talk about how we rate and rank this movie. I think for me, the rating is a little bit easier than the ranking. For the emoji, though, for our rating, we are using the violin. Cropped up a lot throughout the movie. Him smashing at the end was pretty symbolic. So for the rating, I feel pretty confident about, but I'm going to give it 4 violins out of 5. This movie is, I think, incredibly important and powerful. The movies I gave 3s, such as Wings or Terms of Endearment, it's like I came into that movie feeling a certain way, and I left that movie kind of feeling the exact same way. And this is a movie that left me with an undeniable feeling. It impacted me, you know? And so that has to be recognized. You know, I think films that I gave like a 2 or even a 1 made me feel something in a negative way, but the films that sort of hit me emotionally or as a gut punch or that I loved, like The Apartment, like I gotta go above a 3 here. So 4 violins is what I'm thinking. What about you, Carly?
Yeah, I have consistently thought 4. You had mentioned a couple podcasts ago, you know, you start at a 3 and then you kind of see where the movie takes you in a way.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with you that the way it left me after this movie speaks for itself, you know. The way that Parasite left me after thinking, you know, about the movie, like I thought about this one just as long for very different reasons, of course, but yeah, I think it was a 4. It was definitely above a 3, and I really think it deserves 4 violins.
The ranking for me, I would say like this movie more than any others really made me consider like what is our criteria for ranking films, because I think I've definitely just gone off of like gut feeling, intuition, this feels right to me. And I think about this movie in 2 ways. I think as a piece of art and as a movie that is just so culturally significant and important, like this would be ranked number 1, you know?
Yeah.
But if you view films as like a form of entertainment in a general sense, you know, this film was uncomfortable to watch. You know, it saddened me on a level that like, it's not a movie I can really revisit. It's not, you know, it's a movie I feel like I can recommend that everybody watch just once, you know? So I feel like I struggle, like I want to either put it in the A or B tier, but I feel kind of conflicted about maybe putting it in the B tier, like putting it below certain movies, let's say like The Apartment, which is a movie like I personally loved, but obviously 12 Years a Slave is a more important film than The Apartment, and
Totally.
I have a couple ideas. I'm curious what you think, but I could see this being in the A tier in second place behind Parasite potentially. I could see it being at the bottom of our A tier. And then I thought about it potentially being in the B tier between The Apartment and Terms of Endearment. It certainly should go above Terms of Endearment.
Totally.
It probably should be above The Apartment, but I just loved that cute little movie.
Yeah.
That made me feel good things. And, but it's like, I don't know. So I can kind of see it landing in a couple of different places, but I think certainly A or B tier.
For sure. I would say my first instinct was, and you said it very well, if we were ranking these movies in terms of importance, most certainly it would be top of the list.
Yeah.
I think as I look and I think about how we've been ranking them in terms of how we enjoyed them, how we thought the quality of the movie, the writing, everything.
Yeah.
In my head, my first thought was B tier below The Apartment, which
Okay.
was your third option that you mentioned. So
Yeah.
I agree. I think because I look too at our A tier, we have Parasite on top, then $1 Million Baby, then Platoon. So it's like Parasite and $1 Million Baby are not more important than Platoon by any means, but
No.
so I could see it being also below Platoon in A if we think, but I do think it is a B tier movie below The Apartment.
Yeah, I think I'm glad to hear you say that you also were eyeing that middle spot in the B tier, because I think that was my first thought. I'm just trying to think about it, like what was my viewing experience with 12 Years a Slave, and it was tough. And I'm not saying like that the movie should have been PG rated, that that they should have glossed over all the violent parts. I'm thankful for what the movie is, but I also have to be honest with what my visceral reaction was.
My family mostly know I'm doing this podcast. They ask what we're watching, and they ask like, oh, how was 12 Years a Slave? And I was just like, it was very difficult to watch. I wouldn't recommend anybody watch it because it was hard to watch. Everyone needs to see it, but it's definitely a movie that you have to prepare yourself for. Even recording this, like I told you before we even started, I'm always very excited to record podcasts, but this one, it's just kind of like, oh, we have to go through that movie again, and it's hard.
I would definitely recommend it with like the caveat of, you have to sort of like mentally prepare yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's important that people watch it. I think the timing and your headspace when you approach the film, I think should be taken into consideration. But yeah, I agree with you, Carly. And again, as a reminder too, like our ranking list is fluid and it is whatever we kind of define it to be. And I think I echo your thoughts about like, how do we recap a movie like this? And, as a podcast, we want to be just like kind of loosey-goosey and fun and just lighthearted. But I think it's important too that we don't take away the seriousness of the film or the importance. And we know this won't be the last tough film that we tackle on this list. So it's just striking me now too, just like the range of movies that are on this list. This is gonna be so close to The Apartment, and it's just like night and day films. It's kind of cool in a way that over the course of 98 years of Oscars history, to see such a range of films be honored in the same way, with the same award win.
Right. And again, how impactful it is what movies you're up against. Like The Apartment won, but I mean, not that we know all the movies from that were up against them, but
there was only like 4 others. Yeah.
Right. And so the fact that was the best movie then, like now, the movies are so different, and in 2013, movies are so different.
So different.
There's such a difference. So are we going with B tier below The Apartment?
Yes, that was where my gut feeling was, and I think you helped kind of confirm the feeling.
Okay, I do. I feel good about it. It makes it 5th overall on our list, which is good.
Suddenly out of nowhere, it's like A and B tiers are like filling. Like I feel like our last few movies have so decisively been in those 2 tiers. I think I'm ready for another stinker.
Yeah,
I'm ready for.
Super glad we only have 5 tiers. If this has taught me anything, I'm thankful there's only 5 tiers.
Okay. We don't need to relitigate ancient history.
Brad, I'm curious, do you think this movie's for the gays?
No. No. And I'm thinking about it specifically from a lens of gays as like a culture. I feel like there are certain things that I'm looking for, and it doesn't have to necessarily be like there's gay characters on screen, but I'm looking for a certain vibe, any sort of resonant feeling or messaging that could really speak to the experiences of a queer person, but that is not what this movie is about. So I'm curious though, on your end, is it for the girlies?
Yeah, I mean, I said thumbs up. I think
okay.
I think my as long as I've thought about this movie, I can't not think about Lupita and her role in this film as this I mean, 12 Years a Slave, it's written from Solomon's perspective. It's a story about Solomon. But the story of Patsy, portrayed by Lupita Nyong'o, was so good, you know? Like, almost show-stealing good. That I think this movie should be watched by everyone in a way, you know? So I think as I thought back and forth, I wouldn't say it's not for the girls. So I'm going to say it's for the girls because I think the movie's that important. And again, Patsy's story was portrayed so well that it should be seen. So I'm putting it for the girls with the warning that we've said many times throughout this podcast that don't go in thinking it's going to be a fun
girls' night.
Yeah, it's
Galentine's.
not a girls' night film. It is a film that women can watch and appreciate.
What strikes me is like where Patsy yells at Edwin with the soap, like the way that she stands her ground is powerful. And in some ways, I wish this could have been like Patsy's like full story, you know, and because I do think there was a difference between how men and women slaves were treated differently. And, you know, we certainly saw like Solomon's experience, but I feel like we only got tip of the iceberg of really what Patsy's experience was. I agree with your assessment.
Cool.
Well, let's talk about kind of an iconic Academy Awards. Carly, I think you said you watched this one.
Yes. Well, this is one with Ellen?
Yes.
As the host. Yeah.
And there was two big moments from this Oscars that
oh, can I guess?
I'm like, oh my God, that was this year.
Can I guess?
Yeah, I think one of them is pretty obvious.
The selfie.
The selfie. That's it.
So we'll add this to our Instagram post, but immediately when that selfie was taken, it was posted online. And this is when I was in college at the University of Akron. And the face and hole thing was so popular back then. And I mean, it was like minutes later. Photoshopped myself into that selfie. And the storm that it caused on my social media, people just loved it. And it's kind of an iconic thing in my...
Do you still have it?
Yeah. You have never seen this?
I probably have, and it left my mind, but I was thinking it'd be fun if you can like do it again with both of us in it.
Oh, I don't know, Brad. It was kind of a... It was kind of like a
you had to be there.
Moment in time. Yeah, you had to be there. Yeah. It was a moment in time.
It was really between Ellen and I.
Yeah. Yes, I will find it and send it to you.
I think we should add it maybe to the carousel.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh,
or at least to the stories, at least. But yes, this year was hosted by Ellen DeGeneres. This was her second time hosting the Oscars.
Wait, can I try to guess the other moment you're talking about?
Yes. I think it's a little bit smaller and more memeable, but it's one that I still chuckle to myself about.
Okay, wait. Is it that she had pizza delivered?
No, I will say it does not involve Ellen. It involves two other celebrities.
Oh, okay.
Like one announcing a musical performance.
Wait. Is this Adele Dazeem?
Adele Dazeem.
Oh, what is it? The wonderful, the impeccable, the wickedly talented Adele Dazeem.
Adele Dazeem.
Oh my gosh, what an iconic point in time in history.
So we are referencing when John Travolta comes up and he's introducing Idina Menzel, who's about to perform Let It Go, because this is also Frozen's big year at the Oscars. I say it with disdain like that because in college I was so sick of people singing Frozen and Let It Go. And
wait, can I please play it on the pod?
Oh yeah, do it right now.
Okay.
Here to perform the Oscar-nominated, gorgeously empowering song, Let It Go, from the Oscar-winning animated movie Frozen, please welcome the wickedly talented, one and only Adele Dazeem.
Again, think about there's a full teleprompter in front of this man. He was most definitely sent this script ahead of time. He is older than Idina Menzel, who is iconic in her own way. Like, there's so many reasons he should have gotten this right, and to have gotten it so wrong, it reminds me of that one, like, famous newscaster who's, like, talking about this police woman. She said, "Dee mega doo-doo." I don't know if you've seen that, but it's, like, an iconic, like, flub.
I love those newscaster bloopers.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And she's like, oh, and her name was, and it's, like, Diane Megadon or something, and she's like, Dee mega doo-doo. Like, obviously they're reading it from somewhere.
It does kind of remind me of the Miss USA South Carolina.
Oh.
I personally believe that Americans are unable to do so.
I was just listening to our most recent episode that dropped, which was The Apartment, and I forget why, but I was like, at some point in this podcast, we are going to bring up that Miss America answer. It's gonna happen. I'm so glad I came up now because then we can talk about it the next 86 episodes.
I know. I just need a moment in a movie where I could be like, and some people don't have maps. And everywhere such as.
Such as. That's another clip that we should play at a different time, for sure.
Yeah, two big moments. The Oscar selfie that broke Twitter when it was posted, and the Adele Dazeem moment.
The wickedly talented.
These were moments that, because I was on a college campus too myself, and at Central Michigan, fire up chips.
Fire up.
These moments were talked about so often. I'm too young on my Oscars journey yet because I haven't met Carly yet, who's going to bring this into my life.
Rock
but
your world.
This was definitely an Oscars that was memorable to me for these two moments. Let's talk about the lesser half. Again, we are in this era where there's 9 nominees for Best Picture.
9.
But what's fun is, I know some of these movies, and some of them I've never heard of, actually. I'm curious, Carly, too, if you were really into the Oscars that year.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, wait. Carly just sent me the photo, y'all.
Y'all.
Wait, you know what? I definitely have seen that. I almost feel like this was your Twitter profile picture. I feel like when I met you.
I'm certain of it. I posted it March 2nd, 2014. My caption was hanging with friends.
Yeah, so let's talk about the other nominees.
Yeah.
The first film was American Hustle. This is a movie I did see. This is David O. Russell, who also did Silver Linings Playbook. Later would do Joy, which I know Carly brought her a lot of joy.
Oh my God, that movie changed my life.
You loved Joy.
Loved.
And I actually really liked this movie, and it nearly made it onto my bracket, but it actually, I bumped it for something else. But,
wow.
Christian Bale's in this, Amy Adams, Jennifer Lawrence, it really was Jennifer Lawrence who sold it for me, who remains probably in my Mount Rushmore of actresses, honestly. Yeah. With Florence Pugh and the other two, I gotta think about more. American Hustle had 10 nominations this night. I believe it was the highest nominated movie, but got 0 wins.
Wow. Losers.
Yeah. And I would say half of these movies got 0 wins. Maybe that's a factor of the fact that there was 9 nominees. They couldn't all win. Next was Captain Phillips. This was Tom Hanks on a boat and Somali pirates take it over. I did not watch this one.
Oh, I did.
Okay, Carly loved this one. Brought her a lot of joy.
But I do think this was one of the years when I was at Akron. I didn't have a lot going on. So I think I did watch most of these movies. So I'm interested to hear the rest of them. So keep going.
Yeah. So Captain Phillips, real quick, 6 nominations, also 0 wins. The next was Dallas Buyers Club, a movie I did not watch. It had 6 nominations. It had 3 wins, including...
Did Jared Leto win?
Yes. It won both the lead and supporting actor. Okay, yeah. Matthew McConaughey wins in Best Actor leading. Jared Leto, Best Actor supporting.
I assume they beat out Chiwetel for Best Lead.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Matthew McConaughey did.
Wow.
And then we haven't gotten to the actresses yet. So the next movie was Gravity. This was, I'm sure you recall, Sandra Bullock flinging around in space.
Floating around in space. That's the whole movie.
I did watch this one, and that's all I remember is her just kind of as anyone would.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the whole movie. I was not very impressed with this movie, but people loved it.
Yeah, people loved it. I would say I've never I've only watched it the one time. It's directed by Alfonso Cuarón, who is a bit of an Oscars darling. A lot of his movies end up on the Best Picture nominees list. He also directed Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Famously. If I'm ranking movies where there's a couple stranded out in space, I would put Passengers above Gravity any day of the week. And that is one of our biggest fights as a couple, me and Brad, is if Passengers is a good movie or not.
I've seen far too many space movies. Star Wars would be up there for me. Alien would be up there.
I guess I didn't realize Star Wars was in space.
Famously so.
It's
in a galaxy far, far away.
A galaxy far, far away. But they're on land somewhere. I don't know.
Gravity, 10 nominations, 7 wins. This is the big winner of the night. 7 wins.
God.
Gravity actually wins the Best Director. So Alfonso beats out Steve McQueen in this category. So another instance where the Best Picture winner, movie, and the director are not in sync together.
Sorry, Steve.
Kind of robbed. Robbed Goddess. The next movie I did see, not in 2013, but years later, but this is Her with Joaquin Phoenix, who falls in love with an AI, who's like Scarlett Johansson, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. The stronghold that Joaquin Phoenix had on me in the early 2010s because of his role in Walk the Line, which we'll talk about another Oscars.
Oh my God, yeah.
But
yeah.
I just loved him, and I did really like Her, but it's like all too real now.
Yeah, I would say Her is the hottest Joaquin Phoenix has ever looked to me. Like,
yeah.
the mustache really worked for
Brad,
me.
you've never seen Walk the Line, so you can't really talk. The mustache.
I saw him later in Signs and Joker, and he's just not as... I wasn't as into him there.
Yeah, also you wouldn't like him in Walk the Line because he's a country singer, so.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll watch it. I don't know if I would get a dog and name it after anyone from that movie.
Oh my gosh. Please don't bring up Cash. No, you're right. He deserves a spot on the pod.
I mean, we were going to have to tell them one day.
Totally. Cash 1 and Cash
so.
2.
You said we were going to talk about another Oscars. Was Walk the Line nominated for Best Picture? Like, is that something
Yes,
you know?
famously so, as you would say.
Oh, okay. Okay, the next movie I've never heard, never seen is just called Nebraska. It had 6 nominations, 0 wins. It's a comedy drama road film. Check it out, listeners.
Oh yeah, it's like
Nebraska.
in black and white, I think.
The next movie, too, I've never heard of, Philomena. 4 nominations, 0 wins. Sounds British. Philomena. Sounds like a character from Downton Abbey, but neither of us have
You've
seen
never watched that. I am watching Downton Abbey. Do you listen to me at all?
Judi Dench is in it, so it's British confirmed. Okay, and the last one, which is probably like the biggest movie I knew about from this year, The Wolf of Wall Street. 5 nominations, 0 wins.
Sorry,
And,
Leo.
film bros love this movie. They probably were saying Leo was robbed.
Was really good in this movie.
Yes. So for 12 Years a Slave, they had 9 nominations in 1 and 3 categories. Of course, Best Picture. And our girl, Lupita Nyong'o, does secure the win for Best Supporting Actress. So,
amazing.
congrats to Lupita. And this wins for Best Adapted Screenplay. Seemingly a pattern I'm seeing when I'm looking at these Oscars in terms of like the critical reception is nobody seems to like the Oscars. Like everyone's always like, oh, this year was too long. Like they say it like every year. Like there's like, it was too much of this or too much of that. People didn't seem to like Ellen this time around, even though it seemed like it was a fun night. So
people don't like anything. I'm over it.
Real quick, though, I do have the Rotten Tomato score for
Yeah.
12 Years a Slave. Just as a reminder, there's 4 films total that have a 99%. There's 3 films with a rotten score. So my first question is, do you think it's in either one of those categories? Do you think it's in the 99 club or in the rotten club?
I think it's in neither of those clubs.
Okay, you're correct. Yeah. What do you think it is?
Goodness. I think the score is an 87.
Close, 95.
Whoa!
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it officially supplants Wings in the films that we've covered, but it's our second highest rated film for the Rotten Tomatoes in terms of the ones that we've covered. So Parasite, then 12 Years, and then Wings at 94%. So
good, it deserves it. I was thinking people would,
I agree.
based on the
yeah,
what I read, I felt like people would give it low scores because it was too hard to watch or something.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm glad that it got that. It was deserved.
All right. Carly, what came up in your research?
Yeah, so first I looked at our main man, Chiwetel, and not a lot. There was Steve McQueen very intentionally always planned on having Chiwetel play Solomon. So the whole time he was planning this film, he had Chiwetel in mind. He said that Chiwetel had a gentleness and a humanity and thought that he, as an actor, could maintain both of those under the duress that this character would go through. I like to see a role formed around an actor. I always like to see that.
Yeah.
Chiwetel learned how to play violin for the role, so that's cool.
It wasn't like a little girl was playing the violin off screen and it was like Oliver singing.
Correct. They did not
Okay.
Oliver us in this manner. He actually learned to play and he was playing in the film. Did a lot of research for the role. He said that he researched for almost a full year on this role. He did a lot of the acts of labor that many slaves did in terms of the cotton and the sugarcane are 2 of the big settings we saw him in. So he said he did pretty extensive research and actual labor on some of those types of fields.
Wow.
He also has written and directed 2 films in the past 6 years. So that's kind of cool that he is going beyond just acting. And he really hasn't been in a lot since he started really writing and directing films. In 2019 2019 was his first one. But there is a theme, and I wrote here that he was in Doctor Strange, so I thought that was interesting. He played Baron Mordo in Doctor Strange, so he and Benedict Cumberbatch had already, or I guess since then, have rejoined up in that film. So also, like I said, just a common thread. We have Chiwetel, who's in Doctor Strange. Lupita was in the Black Panther films. Benedict Cumberbatch, of course, is Doctor Strange. So there was one more. Yeah, Michael Fassbender in X-Men. So we really have a little piece of the MCU. A lot of Marvel. Yeah, a little piece of the MCU here with us. Michael Fassbender, this is his third movie with Steve McQueen. Like you said, he was in Hunger and Shame. Yes. And then this was his third one. I did want to note, as I was scrolling through his Wikipedia page, I saw the words full frontal nudity. And you were kind of obsessed with...
I've seen it. Okay. It's big.
You, throughout the movie, as awful of a character as he was, you were obsessed with Michael Fassbender. You would be like, oh, but he looks good. Oh, and then you would be like, oh, but actually, but I would kick him out of bed, blah, blah, blah. So you thought he looked very nice as he was doing these horrible things.
I am attracted to Michael Fassbender. I know he has some kind of controversies around him as well. So he might be a little problematic, but I have enjoyed looking at him. And it was tough to watch him in this film.
Yeah. So you've seen Shame, or you've just seen a screenshot of Shame from...
I do some Googling every now and then.
Yeah.
And so...
Totally.
Just for research for this podcast, I had to find these images. So.
Yeah. When I was reading the movie called Shame and then Hunger, it reminded me of the Office episode when they're watching Glee. And... Dwight's like, Glee, what an awful emotion or whatever to have a show about. Thirst. Now that's a show I'd watch. So just these Shame, Hunger, it just reminded me of that.
Joy.
Yeah, exactly. Thirst. Now that's a show I'd watch. Okay, so I'm glad that you've seen that. But yeah, full frontal nudity in the movie Shame, if any of our listeners are interested. Apparently it's big. Now, Michael Fassbender is very involved in auto racing. He races a lot of Porsches and Ferraris in something called Proton Racing. So if you want to catch him in a different capacity, Brad, maybe you can look up some pictures of him in a little racing coat.
You should get some tickets for that.
I'm busy. So Lupita did some deep diving on her. Patsy was her first feature film role, and she won for it. She's the 15th actress to win an Oscar for film debut performance, which I think is actually a lot more than I thought it would be. I mean, this is the 86th. So out of 86 best, Oscar winners, 86 years, 15 of them, it was their first role. So I think that's pretty cool.
It is cool.
I wrote she was in Black Panther. She was also in a
Star
movie
Wars.
That small
Quiet
movie
Place.
Called Star Wars, A Quiet Place, First Day or whatever. And
our favorite Jordan Peele movie.
Well, Brad, I was gonna say this. She also is in a movie that relates to Brad and I's second biggest fight, the movie Us.
Okay, Carly did not make it explicitly clear that I was to wait to watch this movie until we watched it together.
We bought tickets.
I ended up watching it with some local friends on accident. I blacked out when I came to. I'd seen the movie on accident.
We had planned to see this movie together because we also saw Get Out together.
It was for your birthday,
and it was time, and we were gonna go see it together. And as we're walking into the movie, Brad said, "Oh, and I did see this movie already. It's
great. You'll love it."
And my whole world went black, and I really didn't even watch the movie because I was so mad at Brad. But we got over it. We've talked.
Yeah. We worked it out on the remix.
Yes. Lupita played a big role writing an op-ed in the New York Times against Harvey Weinstein. So she came out telling her story, right? And I guess she had some experiences with Harvey Weinstein that played a really big role in his now jail time. So, and his erasure from Hollywood, deservedly so. And then one thing I thought that I wanted to bring up, because you are you and you have a cat, sweet Catsidy, Lupita Nyong'o has had a lifelong fear of cats.
You know what? I did know this because her character in A Quiet Place Day One has this cat the whole time. What's wrong with sweet little cat?
Yeah. She went through exposure therapy because her role was with a cat so much, and now she actually has a cat of her own. So I thought that was a good cat
Yay.
story that you would enjoy.
Aw.
Really quickly want to talk about Brad Pitt. He did, of course, win the Oscar as producer. They're credited for Best Picture.
Yep.
So he won the Oscar for this movie. There was a lot of criticism for him casting himself, in quotes, in this white savior role. And you had called this out. And I watched an interview with him and he's like, oh, I get this all the time, but just know it was a lot easier for us to secure funding if I was in the movie. And he said, we went through a lot of, you pitch your movie around and you try to get funding for it. And he said, but they were not getting funding to the level that they needed unless he was in the movie. So again, he did have some role in what role he played, but I mean, he's in the movie for maybe 15 minutes, if that. So, I don't know. Say what you will. The last thing I wanted to talk about is I did read a lot about the book and the actual story of Solomon. And I wanted to kind of just give some differences I saw. So, first, I want to say that Solomon regained his freedom in January of 1853. Okay? His book came out in August of 1853.
Okay, wow.
7 months later.
He was
basically.
like, I gotta get this out there.
I have to write this down. He wrote the book, right. He wrote the book in 3 months. It was sold and published within another 3 to 4 months time. So kind of crazy that it went so fast and it was received so widely. A few differences. So in the book, Bass wrote several letters to many people, I guess. And the book is written by Solomon Northup. So this is his story he's telling. So I say like in the book this happened, but this is really what happened. So I guess he said that him and Bass came up with like a list of people that weren't directly tied to him so that they could never track it back to him and his family if they were to get out. So they came up with a list of people. The shopkeeper was one of the people. So that was true to the story. I guess the storekeeper told Solomon's wife. So the storekeeper is the letter that really ended up getting him free. Told his wife, Anne, and then his wife got their family lawyer involved, whose name is Henry Northup. No relation. Interesting. I know. Very interesting. I guess the lawyer is the son of Solomon Northup's father's old master, before they were a freed family. And they took on the same last name. So it was just kind of like connections and whatever. But this Henry Northup, he was a lawyer. He's the one who actually worked and got him freed. He's the one who showed up at the plantation with the police and got him freed, and then continued on to try to charge all these people for their actions, which, spoiler alert, nobody actually got charged because apparently a man of color couldn't sue a white man at this point in time.
Yeah, the ending of the movie, I forgot, did end with like text on the screen that explained that basically they tried to sort of hold some of these men accountable in the court of law, and basically they got away with it. There was no punishment, no accountability there.
Yeah. And at the end of the movie too, they say there's no record of what happened to Solomon. Nobody knows how he died. It does say that at the end. I guess as of 1857, that's the last record of Solomon Northup anywhere. So nobody knows what happens to him. 4 years after this book came out and he really told his story, he just kind of disappeared. I hope and pray it was just into a simple life of happiness, but nobody really knows. The last thing, I did look into Patsy and what happened to her, if there was any record. So in the book, it does talk about Patsy, and they really do just leave. There's a lot of dialogue about Patsy, and also in the book, if you're interested, there were a lot of drawings that Solomon did of his experiences. So something to go look at if you're interested. But Patsy, I guess, remained on with Epps until she was freed 10 years later in 1863. There's record that she was on that plantation when it was liberated by Union soldiers. So I guess she was there. She also had a daughter while on the plantation. So yeah. And then her daughter has told a lot of her story, has continued on. Her daughter and her daughter's kids have told a lot of her story just in her honor. So she was there. She was freed. There's not really any other record of what happened next, but yeah, I just thought that was something to note because she was such a big part of the movie.
I'm glad to hear that because, the movie doesn't provide that information about Patsy. And so from the movie's perspective, we don't really know what ended up to her, but she's like the second biggest character of the whole thing,
Yeah.
That's cool that you looked into it.
Yeah. And who knows how true it is, but it's online, so it's got to be kind of true.
Yep.
Right?
All right. So we did it, Carly. We tackled a tough movie. What's exciting is this was episode 9, which means we're preparing for our 10th episode of this podcast.
10.
We turned 10.
Double digits? That's kind
Double
of
digits. We
very
made it.
cool. It's very cool.
Yeah.
I'm happy for us.
Me too. Yeah, this podcast remains the best thing that's happened to me in a while. And every time we release a new episode, I just feel like it's so exciting. And to see our growing list of episodes, like, it's just so cool. And yeah, I'm excited to reveal our 10th movie. Drum roll. We're doing All the King's Men from 1949.
All the King's Men couldn't put Humpty together again. Hopefully we'll get more context into what that means. I'm interested if all the King's horses are going to be in the movie as well.
Yeah.
Nope,
Nope, just the King's Men.
We will tell you next week on the pod.
So far, just from the title alone, doesn't sound like this one's for the girls. I don't know, sounds like it's a lot of men.
Yes.
So hopefully we get some men's butts.
Ugh.
Who knows? But yeah, this is our first time heading off to the 1940s. So aside from Wings, this will be the earliest film we've done. So hope you'll all listen in to episode 10 and celebrate 10 episodes with us as we tackle All the King's Men. So Carly, as always, love ya.
Brad, I love you so much, and talk soon.